The stars seemed different from space. Eric Nelson noticed this as he floated near the viewport of the International Space Station. After 6 months in orbit, he still felt amazed by the view. The vast darkness, the pinpoints of light that seemed close enough to touch, and the blue sphere of Earth below. It never got old. "Enjoying the view again?" Samantha Wright asked as she drifted into the module. Her blonde hair floated around her face in the zero gravity. "Can't help it," Eric replied with a smile. "Something feels different today, though." Samantha joined him at the viewport, their shoulders almost touching as they gazed into the cosmos. "Different how?" Eric shrugged. "Just a feeling, like we're being watched." "Space jitters," Samantha said with a light laugh. "Dr. Chen warned us about that in psychological training." The communication panel behind them beeped suddenly. Both astronauts turned, expecting the usual check-in from mission. "Control in Houston?" Instead, static filled the channel. "That's weird." Eric pushed away from the viewport and floated to the panel. "Houston, this is ISS. Do you copy?" More static answered him. Eric tried different frequencies but found the same result on each channel. "Could be a solar flare disrupting communications," Samantha suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Eric was about to respond when something outside caught his eye. "Sam, look." Beyond the station, a section of space seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The ripple expanded, tore, and revealed a massive object where empty space had been seconds before. "What on earth?" Samantha whispered. "I don't think it's from Earth," Eric replied, his voice tight. The object was clearly a ship, but unlike anything humans had built. It resembled a massive arrowhead, sleek and metallic with pulsing lights along its edges. It dwarfed the space station, casting a shadow over the modules as it positioned itself above them. "We need to record this," Eric said, reaching for the camera they used for experiments. His hands trembled slightly as he focused on the vessel. Samantha moved quickly to the emergency protocol station. "I'm going to try the backup communications system. Houston needs to know about this." As they worked, a beam of pale blue light shot from the alien ship, enveloping the space station. The lights flickered and the gentle hum of life support systems wavered. "They're scanning us," Eric guessed. Or worse. "Got through on the emergency channel," Samantha called out. "Sending video feed now." The blue light intensified and both astronauts felt a pressure in their heads, like the beginning of a migraine. Eric winced, pressing his palm against his temple. "Something's happening," he managed to say before the pressure increased. It felt like someone was trying to turn off his brain piece by piece. Samantha gripped a handrail, her knuckles white. "Fight it, Eric. Whatever it is, fight it." The main screen on their communication panel flickered to life, showing a face that was almost human, but not quite. The skin was pale gray, the eyes too large and entirely black. When it spoke, its mouth didn't match the words they heard in their minds. "Humans of Earth vessel, we are the Craxian Empire. Your planet has been selected for evaluation and potential inclusion in our galactic network. Resistance is unnecessary and inefficient. Accept neural pacification." The pressure in their heads increased. Eric felt his thoughts becoming sluggish, but he pushed back against the mental fog. Next to him, Samantha was doing the same, her face contorted with effort. "Not working, is it?" Eric said through gritted teeth. The alien's expression changed, showing what might have been surprise. The pressure eased slightly. "Interesting," the alien said. "Your neural pathways resist standard suppression. This requires study." Eric managed to reach the emergency beacon, activating it with a shaking hand. The beacon would send a continuous distress signal to Earth, independent of their communication systems. "They need to know," he told Samantha, "whatever happens to us." The alien spoke again. "I am Commander Zorith of the Craxian First Contact Division. Your resistance to neural suppression is unprecedented. You will be brought aboard for analysis." The blue light changed to a vibrant purple, and Eric felt his body become weightless in a different way than the familiar zero gravity. He and Samantha began drifting toward the viewport, which seemed to melt away before them. Eric! Samantha reached for him and he grabbed her hand. Stay together, he said firmly. Whatever happens, we stay together. As they were pulled from the station, Eric caught one last glimpse of Earth below them, peaceful and unaware of what was coming. He hoped his warning had gotten through. The interior of the alien ship was blinding white, with surfaces that seemed solid yet somehow fluid. Eric and Samantha found themselves in a circular room with no visible doors or windows, floating in the center of what felt like a gentle anti-gravity field. Several Craxians observed them from behind transparent barriers. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with slender builds and those unsettling black eyes. They wore what looked like armor that moved with their bodies, changing color slightly with each movement. Why didn't they shut down? One of the aliens asked, its thoughts translating directly into Eric and Samantha's minds. Unknown, replied another. Every species we've encountered has an evolutionary failsafe. When confronted with overwhelming force, their higher functions automatically shut down to preserve basic life signs. Humans appear to lack this response. Or, they've evolved past it, suggested a third alien. This one smaller than the others. Fascinating. Commander Zoreth approached the barrier. Your species is unusual. Most intelligent life forms submit immediately to neural suppression. It prevents unnecessary conflict and eases transition into the Empire. Eric found his voice. Humans don't submit easily. We're stubborn that way. We've noticed, Zoreth replied, something like amusement in the mental voice. It's inefficient, but interesting. Our chief scientist, Velnar, will study this anomaly. A new Craxian stepped forward, distinguished by markings on its armor. The absence of an off switch in your neural structure is both problematic and intriguing. We must understand this before proceeding with planetary integration. Integration? Samantha asked, still holding Eric's hand tightly. You mean invasion? A matter of perspective, Velnar replied. All species eventually recognize the benefits of Craxian guidance. Most simply require less convincing. Eric looked at Samantha, a silent message passing between them. They had to find a way to warn Earth, to escape, to fight back somehow. Your planet will be visited by our full contact fleet soon, Zoreth informed them. They bring the means to pacify your population, though given your resistance to standard methods, adjustments may be necessary. You'll find humans are full of surprises, Eric said, his voice steadier than he felt. Velnar made a gesture, and a shimmering field separated Eric from Samantha. She called out to him as she was moved. To another chamber. Study begins now, the scientist said. We will understand how humans function. All species have vulnerabilities. All species have limits. As he was moved into a separate examination room, Eric closed his eyes and focused on staying calm. The alien was right about one thing. All species had vulnerabilities. Including, he hoped, the Craxians themselves. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been fighting against forces trying to control them since the beginning of their history. They had no idea what they were up against. The Craxians would learn. The hard way, humans didn't come with an off switch. Bright lights hurt Eric's eyes as he woke up on a flat metal surface. His head pounded with pain. The room around him hummed with strange energy. He tried to move, but invisible forces held him down. The subject regains consciousness quickly, a voice said in his mind. Eric recognized Velnar, the Craxian scientist. Most species remain unconscious for much longer after neural mapping. Eric turned his head slightly and saw the tall alien standing near what looked like a control panel. The symbols on it shifted and moved as if alive. Where is Samantha? Eric asked, his voice rough. The female is in another testing chamber, Velnar replied without looking up from the panel. Her resistance to our methods is equally strong. Fascinating specimens, both of you. In another room across the ship, Samantha also lay strapped to an examination table. Different Craxians moved around her, taking samples and running tests. Unlike Eric, she remained perfectly still, her eyes closed. But Samantha was far from unconscious. She had learned meditation techniques during her NASA training. Now she used those skills to appear unresponsive while keeping her mind alert. She listened to everything the alien said, gathering information. The brain structure shows unusual pathways, one Craxian said to another. When we apply the neural suppressor, the human brain reroutes signals instead of shutting down. Can we increase the power? Asked another. We tried with the male subject. The human brain adapted within minutes. Increasing power further might cause permanent damage, which would ruin the study. Samantha stored this information carefully. The alien's control technology had limits. Humans could resist it. This could be important later. Back in Eric's chamber, Velnar approached with a small device that glowed blue. This won't hurt if you don't resist, the scientist said. Is that what you tell all the species you conquer? Eric asked. Velnar paused. Conquest is an inefficient term. We bring order. All other species we've encountered eventually understand the benefits of Craxian guidance. Their neural structures recognize superior authority and naturally submit. Not humans, Eric said with a small smile. No, not humans, Velnar agreed. Which makes you dangerous. The Empire considers species without submission responses to be unpredictable. The Craxian Council will likely order complete pacification of your planet, rather than standard integration. Eric felt cold fear at these words. What does complete pacification mean? It means your population will be placed in controlled environments. Those who cannot adapt will be removed. You mean killed? Velnar made a gesture that might have been a shrug. Life forms that cannot accept order create chaos. The Empire cannot allow chaos. The scientist placed the blue device on Eric's forehead. Pain shot through his head, but Eric focused on staying conscious. He needed to learn more to find a way to warn Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth, NASA's Mission Control Center was in chaos. The last transmission from the ISS had cut off abruptly, after sending disturbing images of an unknown object approaching the station. Play it again, said Kevin Ortiz, the lead engineer for the ISS mission. The large screen showed Eric and Samantha's final moments aboard the station before communications failed. The object doesn't match any known satellite or debris pattern, said one technician, and it appeared out of nowhere. People, we need answers, not questions, said Diana Lawson as she entered the room. Her military uniform and serious expression silenced the room. As the head of space defense operations, her presence meant the situation had escalated beyond NASA's jurisdiction. Colonel Lawson, Kevin acknowledged with a nod. I assume you've seen the footage? I have, she replied. And I've brought some people who need to see it too. She gestured, and several officials in suits entered the room. They wore no identifying badges, but their authority was clear. The president has been briefed, Diana continued. As of now, this is a matter of national security. We have 36 hours before we go public with a statement about a technical malfunction on the ISS. In that time, I need options. Options for what? Kevin asked. Diana looked him directly in the eyes. For how to respond when they come back, because they will come back. And next time, it won't be just to take 2 astronauts. Back on the Craxian ship, hours had passed. Eric felt exhausted from the tests but still refused to submit to the neural suppression attempts. Each time the aliens tried, his mind seemed to find new ways to resist. Velnar had moved from frustrated to genuinely curious. Your species evolved on a predator-heavy planet with constant threats, yet you developed no automatic submission response. Instead, you fight harder when threatened. It defies evolutionary logic. Maybe your logic is wrong, Eric suggested. Maybe fighting back is better than giving up. The ship suddenly trembled slightly. Velnar turned to check a display on the wall. What was that? Eric asked. Just a standard course adjustment, Velnar said. But Eric noticed the scientist seemed concerned. In her testing chamber, Samantha felt the tremor too. She had managed to work one hand partly free from its restraint while pretending to be sedated. When the Craxians turned to check their instruments, she moved her fingers to the edge of the table, feeling for anything useful. Her fingertips touched something small and metallic, a tool the aliens had left behind. Carefully, she palmed it and hid it in her sleeve. Commander Zoreth entered Eric's chamber looking troubled. He spoke to Velnar in their own language, which didn't translate to Eric's mind. "Is there a problem?" Eric asked. Zoreth turned to him. "Your primitive space station contained transmitting devices we failed to detect. Before we removed you, it sent data back to your planet. Now your leaders are aware of our presence." Eric tried not to show his relief. The emergency beacon had worked. "The Emperor has been informed," Zoreth continued. "He has ordered the advance fleet to begin immediate preparation rather than standard observation." "How long?" Velnar asked, clearly surprised. "6 of this planet's months instead of the planned 2 years. The Council believes humans represent an unusually high contamination risk to the network. Their capacity to resist control cannot be allowed to spread." Eric's mind raced. 6 months before a full invasion, Earth needed to know. "You should reconsider," Eric said, trying to sound calm. "Humans don't just resist control. We fight back against those who try to control us. Always have, always will." Zoreth made a dismissive gesture. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your resistance, while fascinating, is futile." "We're full of surprises," Eric countered. "Indeed," said Velnar thoughtfully, "which is precisely why the Empire considers you dangerous." As the aliens continued their discussion, Eric began planning. 6 months might be enough time if he and Samantha could somehow escape. The aliens clearly didn't understand humans, didn't realize what humans were capable of when threatened. The Craxians had made a critical mistake. They assumed that because they had superior technology, victory was certain. They didn't understand that humans had faced overwhelming odds throughout their history and still found ways to survive. The alien empire was about to learn a painful lesson about humanity's most defining trait. Humans simply didn't stop fighting, no matter the odds. 5 months passed quickly on Earth. The world had changed since the news broke about the alien threat. Nations that once fought each other now worked together. Humans understood that survival required unity. Kevin Ortiz hadn't slept well in months. Dark circles marked his eyes as he studied the designs on his computer screen. Around him, the NASA research lab buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked day and night. "The shield prototype failed again," said a tired engineer. Dropping a damaged piece of equipment on the table, Kevin rubbed his eyes. "We're getting closer. The materials respond to the energy signature we recorded from the ISS footage. We just need more time." "Time is the one thing we don't have, Diana," Lawson said as she entered the lab. Her uniform looked pressed and perfect despite the late hour. "Military intelligence confirms unusual activity beyond Mars orbit. They're coming." Kevin stood up. "How long?" "Days, not weeks," Diana replied. "The President is addressing the United Nations tonight. All military forces worldwide are on highest alert." She placed a tablet on the table showing satellite images. Strange objects moved in formation near the outer planets. "Any word from Eric and Samantha?" Kevin asked quietly. Diana shook her head. "Nothing since they disappeared. We have to assume they're still captives, if they're alive at all." Aboard the Craxian ship deep in the vessel's restricted section, Eric worked carefully at removing a panel from the wall. 5 months of observation had taught him much about Craxian technology. The small tool Samantha had smuggled to him made the work possible. His body showed signs of the aliens' tests, thin scars on his arms, a constant tremor in his left hand. But his eyes remained determined. "Hurry," Samantha whispered from the doorway. She wore a uniform stolen from a smaller Craxian crew member. It hung loosely on her thinner frame. "The guard rotation happens in 3 minutes." Eric nodded without looking up. Almost there. They had escaped their separate holding cells 2 weeks ago. Instead of fleeing immediately, they hid within the massive ship, learning its systems and gathering intelligence. The Craxians still searched for them but assumed they were hiding in the lower levels, not right in the command section. "Got it," Eric said as the panel came loose. Behind it lay a mess of glowing circuits. "This connects to their communication array. If I'm right, we can send a message to Earth with their exact fleet positions." Samantha kept watch at the door. And the defensive shield codes? Working on it. These symbols are similar to what I saw in the weapons control room. Eric connected a small device they had built from stolen parts. It began copying the alien data. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Samantha tensed. That's not for us. Something else is happening. They heard running footsteps and pressed themselves into a shadowy corner. 3 Craxian officers rushed past, not noticing the humans. The invasion must be starting, Eric whispered, his face grim. We're out of time. Samantha made a quick decision. Change of plan. Forget the message. We need to get to one of their scout ships now. Eric hesitated only a moment before nodding. He grabbed the data device and followed her through the corridors. On Earth, the first wave of Craxian ships entered the atmosphere. They positioned themselves over major cities worldwide. Each ship released smaller pods that descended toward the ground. In the White House Situation Room, the president watched the video feeds with Diana and other military leaders. The Chinese report the same thing over Beijing, an aide said. They're not attacking yet, just positioning. It's psychological warfare, Diana noted, showing their strength before they strike. On screens around the room, millions of people looked up at the alien ships with fear and wonder. News helicopters circled at a distance, broadcasting the enormous vessels hanging silently in the sky. Here we go, the president said as the bottom of each alien ship began to glow. The sky lit up worldwide as blue light bathed the cities below. People in the street stopped moving, looking confused. Some fell to their knees while others stood frozen in place. It's the neural suppressor technology, Kevin said, rushing into the room with a tablet. They're trying to shut down everyone at once. Diana looked at the screens showing crowds in various cities. But it's not working completely, look. While some people appeared dazed or confused, many others were clearly fighting the effect. Some were helping those who seemed more affected. Nowhere did they see the total submission the aliens expected. Get me global communications, the president ordered. Everyone needs to know they can resist this. In New York City, a Craxian pod landed in Central Park. Armed soldiers approached cautiously as a door opened and a Craxian emerged. It was Commander Zorith. People of Earth. His voice projected directly into the minds of everyone nearby. Your resistance is noted but ultimately futile. The Craxian Empire brings order to chaos. Submit and survive. A young police officer stepped forward. This is our planet. We don't want your order. Zorith studied the human with those large black eyes. Interesting. Your neural patterns resist standard suppression as our research indicated. We prepared for this. He raised a hand, and the pod behind him opened further. Smaller devices flew out, spreading across the park and beyond. They released a fine mist that settled over everyone. Nanite infestations will control what your minds will not surrender, Zorith explained. They will override your nervous systems directly. People began coughing as they inhaled the mist. Some fell to the ground, their bodies twitching. But then something unexpected happened. Many began to stand back up. Their movements were shaky but determined. The nanites weren't fully taking control. Zorith stepped back in surprise. Impossible. Your immune systems cannot reject the nanites. The police officer smiled through obvious pain. Like we've been telling you, humans don't have an off switch. High above Earth, Eric and Samantha had reached the scout ship hangar. They hid behind cargo containers as Craxians rushed to prepare more invasion pods. There, Samantha pointed to a small ship apart from the others. That one's already prepped for launch. They waited until the hangar crew moved to another section, then sprinted across the open space to the scout ship. Eric reached it first and placed his hand on the entry panel, as he'd seen the Craxians do. Nothing happened. It needs Craxian DNA, he said with frustration. Samantha pulled something from her pocket, a small vial of blue liquid. Blood sample from the lab. I grabbed it before we escaped. She poured the liquid onto the panel. It glowed, and the door slid open. Inside, they quickly found the control station. The interface was alien, but after months of observation, they understood the basics. Can you fly it? Samantha asked. Eric studied the controls. Not well, but enough to get us to Earth. The real question is whether they'll shoot us down once we launch. Samantha strapped herself in. We have to try. Earth needs to know what we've learned about their weaknesses. Eric activated the launch sequence. The hangar doors ahead remained closed. Now what? Samantha whispered. Eric looked at the weapons controls. We make our own door. He pressed what he hoped was the firing mechanism. Energy beams shot from the scout ship, blasting the hangar doors. Alarms blared as the ship lifted off. Hold on, Eric shouted as they accelerated through the damaged doors into open space. Behind them, larger Craxian vessels turned to pursue. The small scout ship raced toward Earth, carrying 2 humans who refused to give up, even against impossible odds. Just like the rest of humanity fighting below, they had proven what the Craxians were only beginning to understand. Humans would never stop fighting for their freedom. The small scout ship shook violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Eric gripped the controls with white knuckles while warning lights flashed across the alien dashboard. They're still behind us, Samantha said, watching the radar-like display, showing 3 larger Craxian vessels in pursuit. And gaining. Almost there, Eric said through gritted teeth. If we can just reach the ground, maybe Earth's defenses can help us. The ship's exterior glowed red-hot as it plummeted toward North America. Eric had aimed for the Nevada desert, hoping to avoid populated areas in case they crashed. Can you send a message? He asked Samantha. Any frequency. Let them know it's us, not them. Samantha worked the communication panel, trying to remember the patterns she had observed during their captivity. I think so. Using basic radio waves, nothing fancy. Miles below, at a military base in Nevada, radar operators watched the incoming objects with growing tension. 4 bogies entering atmosphere, 1 technician reported. 1 small, 3 larger. Trajectory suggests the small one is running from the others. Diana Lawson leaned over the radar screen, her face tense. Any response to identification requests? Wait. The technician adjusted his headset. We're getting something. It's crude, but it's in English. He turned up the volume so everyone could hear. A broken voice came through. Earth, astronauts. Nelson and Wright, returning information, need help. Diana's eyes widened. It's them. Alert all defense systems to target the pursuing craft only, and get me a rescue team ready immediately. Outside, jet fighters scrambled, racing toward the incoming ships. On the ground, experimental weapons developed from studying the alien technology were powered up. The scout ship was now just minutes from landing. Eric fought to control its descent as one engine failed completely. We're going to crash, he warned Samantha. Strap in tight. She checked her restraints and reached out to squeeze his arm. Hey, at least we made it home. Eric managed to smile despite the chaos around them. Not dead yet. Hold on. The ship hit the desert floor hard, skidding across sand and rock before coming to a stop in a cloud of dust. Inside, airbag-like devices had deployed, saving Eric and Samantha from serious injury. You okay? Eric asked, unbuckling himself and checking Samantha. She nodded, touching a cut on her forehead. Let's go before our friends arrive. They struggled, out of the damaged ship into the bright desert sun. In the distance, they could hear aircraft approaching. I hope those are ours, Eric said, shielding his eyes to look up. The 3 Craxian pursuit vessels appeared overhead, hovering menacingly. But before they could attack, streaks of light cut across the sky. Earth's jet fighters arrived, firing missiles at the alien ships. To Eric and Samantha's surprise, some of the missiles actually impacted rather than being deflected. 1 Craxian ship listed to the side, clearly damaged. They've developed weapons that work, Samantha said in amazement. Military helicopter appeared, landing nearby. Soldiers poured out, approaching with weapons ready but not aimed directly at them. Eric Nelson? Samantha Wright? A soldier called out. That's us, Eric replied, raising his hands. American astronauts, returned with a stolen alien ship and critical information. Diana Lawson stepped out of the helicopter. Get them in now. Those Craxian ships are calling for reinforcements. Minutes later, the helicopter was airborne again, racing away as the battle continued over the downed scout ship. Eric and Samantha watched through the windows as one of the Craxian vessels exploded in a brilliant flash. "How did you do that?" Samantha asked Diana. "Their shields should have stopped conventional weapons." "Not conventional," Diana replied, shouting over the helicopter noise. "We've been busy these past 5 months. Kevin Ortiz led a team that reversed engineered parts of their technology from the data you sent before you were taken." Eric looked surprised. "The emergency beacon actually helped?" Diana nodded. "It gave us just enough to start. But we need more." "What did you learn during your captivity?" For the next hour, as they flew to a secure facility, Eric and Samantha shared everything they had discovered: the Craxian weaknesses, the location of their main fleet, the structure of their command. "Their entire empire is controlled by an AI," Eric explained as they sat in a briefing room later. "The Emperor is mostly a figurehead. The real power is this ancient computer system that makes all the strategic decisions." Kevin Ortiz entered the room, looking exhausted but excited. His eyes lit up when he saw his former colleagues. "You made it." He hugged them both before turning serious again. "What can you tell us about their neural technology?" Samantha spread out diagrams she had drawn. "It works on a specific frequency that targets the submission response in most species, but humans evolved differently. Our brains reroute signals instead of shutting down. The more they tried to control us, the more we adapted." Kevin studied the diagrams. "This matches what we've observed here. Their suppression technology has less effect each time they use it. People are building immunity." Diana consulted her tablet. "That's the good news. The bad news is that their main fleet has entered the solar system. Thousands of ships, not hundreds." Satellite images showed the massive Craxian armada approaching Earth. At its center was a vessel dwarfing all others, the Emperor's command ship. "They're bringing their planet-killer weapon," Eric said quietly. "The Void Cascade. It can render Earth uninhabitable within hours." A grim silence fell over the room. "Then we need to strike first," Diana said finally. "Hit their command structure before they can use it." "How?" Kevin asked. "We can't reach their fleet with our current technology." Eric and Samantha exchanged a look. "The scout ship," Samantha suggested. "If it can be repaired." "It can't," Kevin interrupted. "But we've been building our own based on the designs you just transmitted. It's not complete, but we'll need a team," Eric said. "Volunteers to infiltrate the command ship." "A suicide mission," Diana noted, but didn't dismiss the idea. "Maybe not," Samantha countered. "The Craxians are logical to a fault. Their AI thinks in predictable patterns. That's why they can't understand humans. We're too random, too adaptable." Kevin's eyes widened. "A virus? Not a biological one, but a computer virus designed to exploit that weakness." For the first time, real hope appeared on their faces. Outside the facility, battles raged worldwide. Craxian ships continued their invasion, but everywhere they went, humans fought back with increasing effectiveness. The neural suppression was failing. The nanite infestations were being rejected by human immune systems. And now, Earth's weaponry was beginning to damage the alien vessels. In his chamber aboard the massive command ship, the Craxian Emperor received troubling reports. His black eyes narrowed as he studied the data. "Impossible," he murmured. "No species has ever resisted integration this effectively." The holographic face of the AI appeared before him. "The humans represent a systemic anomaly, Emperor. They cannot be predicted or controlled through standard methods. Logic dictates they must be eliminated rather than integrated." The Emperor hesitated. In his long life, he had overseen the integration of 17 species into the Empire. None had been destroyed completely. "Prepare the Void Cascade," the AI instructed. "Earth must be neutralized before their resistance spreads to other systems." As the Emperor gave the order, he did not know that a small team of humans was already preparing to launch toward his ship, carrying with them humanity's last hope, a weapon that targeted not bodies, but the very logic that had built an empire. The modified scout ship moved silently through space, its systems dampened to avoid detection. Inside, 4 humans checked their equipment one final time. Eric and Samantha led the team, along with Diana and a computer specialist named Alan Baker. Approaching the command fleet, Eric said quietly, as if the Craxians might hear him through the vacuum of space. Their defense grid hasn't spotted us yet. On the main display, the enormous Craxian fleet spread out before them. Hundreds of warships surrounded the central command vessel, which looked like a floating city in space. That thing is the size of Manhattan, Alan whispered, his eyes wide behind his glasses. Diana checked the small device in her hand, a quantum drive containing the computer virus Kevin and his team had created. Remember the plan. We dock at the maintenance port, use the Craxian blood sample to enter, then find the central AI core. Samantha pointed to a section of the command ship on their display. Based on what we saw during our captivity, the AI core should be here, near the Emperor's chambers. The scout ship drifted closer, using the larger vessels as cover. Several tense minutes passed before they reached the massive command ship. Eric guided their vessel toward a small opening that appeared to be a maintenance dock. "Here goes nothing," he said, activating the docking sequence they had practiced countless times. To everyone's relief, the alien systems accepted their approach. Mechanical arms extended to secure the scout ship, pulling it into a small hangar. Pressure normalized, and the team checked their weapons, specially designed pulse rifles that could disrupt Craxian technology. "Suits on," Diana ordered, and they all pulled on helmets. The suits weren't for oxygen but protection against the nanites that filled Craxian ships. They opened the hatch and moved into the alien vessel. The corridors were eerily quiet. "Where is everyone?" Alan asked. "Preparing for the attack on Earth," Samantha explained. "Most crew will be at battle stations." They moved quickly through the ship, following the path Samantha had memorized. Twice they had to hide as Craxian crew members passed by, but their progress remained steady. "We're close," Eric whispered as they approached a heavily secured door. "This should lead to the central control section." Diana applied the vial of Craxian blood to the security panel. The door remained closed. "Higher clearance needed," she muttered. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. A voice spoke in both Craxian and translated English. "Intruder alert. Security breach in Maintenance Sector 7. All units respond." "They found our ship," Alan said, his voice tense. No time for subtlety, Diana decided. She attached a small explosive to the door panel and motioned everyone back. The blast was small but effective, shorting out the security system. The door slid open, revealing a large chamber beyond. At its center stood a Craxian in elaborate armor, different from any they had seen before. "The Emperor," Samantha breathed. The Craxian Emperor turned slowly to face them. Unlike the other aliens they had encountered, his black eyes held something almost like emotion. "Humans," he said, his thoughts projecting into their minds. "You continue to surprise us. No species has ever infiltrated a command ship before." Diana raised her weapon. "Call off the attack on our planet." The Emperor made a gesture that might have been amusement. "I do not control such decisions. I merely serve as vessel for the true authority." A holographic image appeared beside him, a swirling pattern of light that formed and reformed continuously. "The collective intelligence," the Emperor explained, "the accumulated wisdom of 20,000 years of Craxian civilization, distilled into algorithmic perfection." Eric studied the hologram carefully. "An AI, just as we suspected." "More than artificial intelligence," the Emperor corrected. "It is our past, present, and future unified into one consciousness. It determined long ago that order requires control, and control requires submission." "And species that don't submit," Samantha asked, "cannot be permitted to contaminate the galactic network with chaos and unpredictability." Diana moved forward, the virus device in her hand. "You mean free will, independent thought?" The Emperor's attention shifted to the device. "Ah, you bring a weapon of sorts, clever but futile." Suddenly the humans felt pressure in their minds, stronger than anything, Eric and Samantha had experienced before. The neural suppressor, Eric warned, fighting to stay upright. Enhanced for human physiology, the Emperor noted. We have studied you extensively. Diana and Alan dropped to their knees, their faces twisted in pain. But Eric and Samantha, having endured months of similar attempts, resisted better. Now, Eric gasped to Samantha. She nodded and pulled a second device from her suit, one they had kept secret even from Diana and Alan. It emitted a high-pitched tone that caused the Emperor to stagger back, his mental attack faltering. What? Is this? He demanded. Something we learned during our captivity, Eric explained, helping Diana back to her feet. Your neural technology works both ways. You can't control our minds without connecting to them first. That connection is a pathway. Understanding dawned in the Emperor's eyes. You reversed the signal. Exactly, Samantha said. Now, Alan, your computer specialist recovered from the mental attack, connected their virus device to a control panel. The holographic AI flickered as the virus began its work. This is impossible, the Emperor said, but his mental voice sounded less certain. On the main display screen, they could see the massive Craxian fleet suddenly stop its advance toward Earth. Ships began moving in random directions, some colliding with each other. What have you done? The Emperor demanded. Alan smiled despite his exhaustion. We didn't attack your AI directly. We just altered its perception of reality. It's still making logical decisions, but now based on completely wrong information. The holographic entity pulsed erratically, its patterns breaking down and reforming in chaotic ways. The collective cannot function with contradictory inputs, the Emperor said, a note of fear in his mental voice for the first time. You have introduced chaos into perfect order. Diana stepped forward. No, we've introduced humanity. We don't submit because we understand something your empire forgot long ago. True strength comes from adaptation, not control. Throughout the ship, systems began failing as the central AI lost coherence. Emergency alarms sounded. We need to go, Eric urged. This ship is going to tear itself apart as systems conflict with each other. As they turned to leave, Samantha looked back at the Emperor, who stood watching his empire collapse around him. You should evacuate your people, she told him. This isn't about destruction. It's about freedom. The Emperor studied her for a long moment. Perhaps there is wisdom in chaos after all. A lesson the Craxian people have forgotten. The humans raced back to their scout ship, passing confused Craxian crew members who no longer tried to stop them. The elaborate control hierarchy had collapsed without the AI's guidance. From the safety of their ship, they watched as the command vessel broke formation, its weapons powering down. Across the fleet, the same scene repeated as ships lost central coordination. It's working, Alan said in amazement. They're withdrawing. On their communication channel, a message came through. Not in the usual mental projection, but in simple radio waves. Humans of Earth, the Emperor's voice said. The attack is ended. The collective intelligence has been enlightened by your resistance. We will withdraw from your system to reconsider our understanding of order and chaos. Diana looked at her companions, exhausted but triumphant. Did we just win a galactic war with a computer virus? Eric smiled. We won because we showed them something they couldn't comprehend, that strength comes from our refusal to be controlled, not from controlling others. As the Craxian fleet retreated from Earth's solar system, humans worldwide celebrated a victory few could have imagined possible. The news spread quickly. The invaders had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by humanity's most fundamental quality, the refusal to surrender, to submit, to be switched off. In time, the Craxian Empire would return, not as conquerors, but as equals seeking to learn from the species that had taught them the power of free will. And humans would step out into the stars, carrying with them the lesson that had saved their world, that the strongest societies are built not on control but on freedom.